All right, so mixing with the console 1, part 3. So now we're going to get a little bit more into the mixing workflow. So we kind of started off with that, and so far, what I've primarily worked on to this point, other than setting the rack tom and floor tom. So hold on one second. Let me just kind of queue up a tom fill here, and let's see if I can just kind of quickly organize those things right there. It looks like we have a lot of activity. Kind of traveling, so maybe what I'll do is I'll highlight a little area here, and then we'll just kind of loop some of this around.
Keep running from where you belong again.
Let's go back to the console 1. Switch to track 6.
Keep running from where you belong.
So this is gonna actually
And I'll find you again. Keep running from where you belong again. Oh yeah. And I'll find you again. Keep running from where you belong again. Oh yeah. And I'll find you again.
So these were kind of, gated or edited out already, which kind of annoys the crap out of me a bit. But this is basically what it's set at. So I'm gonna have to kind of go with it. And what I'm also going to do here is I'm going to bring in my overheads on track 4. So this is like, I'm not going to be able to deal with that. I guess that'll be kind of a more or less like a reverb thing. And, okay, so let me just kind of clear my solos here.
And I'll find you again. Keep running from where you belong again. Oh yeah.
Okay, so now that we kind of got that sorted out, let's go back over to Pro Tools here, and now I'm just going to kind of run up here from the introduction, and let's just kind of work on the sounds a little bit and kind of integrate some of the software stuff into it. So what we have over here on the left is a dynamic shape section. This would be for gating. There's also high cut, low cut filters. So this is represented perfectly graphically on the actual work surface. We have the shape section, we have the main EQ section, we have a compressor section, and then over here on the right, we have the ability to kind of determine like the ordering of things as well. So we can determine whether we have EQ first before compression, compression before EQ, all of those sorts of things. And, so those things are important. Usually it's the way that they have it by default here is the shaping section. So filters first, then the shaping, which would be any kind of gating, or if you like to use the transient shaper, that would be another way to go. The EQ and then the compression. But we can also reset the order here so that, we go dynamic shaping compressor equalization. So you could see the different orders shape configured here just as we kind of go along. So I'm going to start with the bass, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the way that I would work is I generally do a little subtractive EQ first and then go into the compressor. So I'll just kind of start with that, and then let's kind of see how it shapes up, and just kind of start with the bass sound here for a second. Now, just to kind of show you what that looks like on the hardware end of things, so here we have our filters. This is the shape section that you saw on the left, the equalization section, the compression section, and we also have drive controls. This is the button that I hit to change the ordering of the tracks, or the sequencing of the tracks. So those are the basic setups there. Let me just kind of see. You can also set up an external sidechain, which would feed in from the DAW software. So this gives us the ability to select a key input from the bus, and that would enable it for the tracks as well. So let me go back to here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up an EQ. So all I'm doing is I'm hitting the EQ button. So what does that look like? If I'm actually on the server, I'm just hitting the EQ button, and then what it's going to do is it's going to open up some options for me, right? Or it's going to enable the EQ, which is by default the SSL E-Series EQ. Now, if I hold the Shift key and I click on, hold on, I'm sorry, hold the Shift key and hit the EQ button, I can select whatever equalizer that I want. And so all of the active plugins that are available, including the K-Series, the focusing EQ, I could do everything in Summit EQs or TubeTech, etc. So I could put any of those different components in there, and then they would map out to the knobs with the gain and whatever functions accordingly. So by default, we're on the E-Series. So if I do that, I'm just going to hit the OK button here, and that would enable. So when I turn the EQ section on, we're just going to start with this. And then I also have by default a filter. So I have a high pass, a low pass filter, as you see here, or a high cut filter, and a low cut filter. And so those knobs just exist right on the hardware implementation just over here on the left. I could assign those to the compressor. I can phase invert the channels if I want to, and it didn't get into any of that stuff. And then I could also store and save presets or load presets if I like. So let's just kind of get into kind of working with this a little bit. And hold on one second here, go back to that. So I'm just going to bring in a little bit of a high cut here. I can see, just kind of warm up the bass a little bit.
Hear what you say.
Now, just like the toms, what happened here is like the kick has sort of been gated out a little bit. So here what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the EQ on. I'm going to integrate a little bit of a low end here. So this is pretty low here. This is now like you know, this is really low stuff here. I'm kind of moving it a little too slowly here. This is getting used to the velocity of the knobs here. So now I'm going to move over here, and I'm going to find a low band. I'm going to work with a bell curve, right? So I can select the bell curve here, and I'm going to kind of find our fundamental frequency here. And so I'm going to kind of put this in. If you're familiar with the SSL E-Series, this is actually the, I'm going to do a little bit of a low mid dip here and kind of tighten that up a little bit. So what you're seeing here is you're not going to see anything that looks like the actual SSL in terms of the knob positions. It's the black knob SSL EQs from the E-Series. So if you're that familiar with the E-Series, or you've looked at other emulations, sometimes they'll do the black knob or brown knob, or give you both options. And I could take the EQ in and out. So because this is sort of gated, top here, I can just kind of go to a shelf here, add a little bit of presence here to the kick. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little high cut in here. And now I can take this kind of in and out. And I'm going to move over to the next channel here. All right, the snare is going to need a little bit more love here. So I'm going to put my EQ on. Put my EQ hat on here. First thing I think I'm going to do is I'm going to work with this low frequency down here. Now, this is actually true to the SSL in that the low mid knob goes down to 200 cycles, and on the top should goes up to 2.5K. So that is true to the original. So what I'm going to do here is on my low end, I'm going to try to find the fundamental, which is probably a little bit below there. And this is something that where I think like using the shelf might help me to get a little bit more body out of this. And then I can kind of chase it a little bit with the filter on the bottom end. And then in this mid band, I'll probably just, you know, probably go in somewhere around like 500 or so and kind of do a little bit of a dip. You can really see like the broader nature of the shape of the E series. So to me, it's like in having worked so much with the hardware, it's a little bit odd to me at first, kind of working with this and making adjustments. Because when I listen to this, I can really hear, you know, there are visual positions that I kind of would take myself to with this, you know, just knowingly from working with the hardware version. All right, let's go back. That just seems pretty rough. Going to go a little bit lighter there. I don't need to make this a little bit too snappy, but let's kind of go over here to the overheads. And kind of pop in a little bit of EQ here. So here I'm just going to do like a simple like mid dip. This is just kind of taking away a little bit of the boxiness. So I'm going to kind of switch back. So all of this is just me switching and working just from the work surface itself. And it'll lessen a lot of that dip there. I think it's probably a lot less necessary. It seems to have like a little bit of a hollow kind of thing to it. So I'm gonna go back here and now kind of work with this a little bit. I think I can kind of just gonna add a little bit of drive. And now I'm just going to kind of work up with the compressor here. I'm going to start with like always like to work with the SSL. Always have liked it somewhere in that 5 range. Now, what is unique about this is that on an SSL fast attack is 3 milliseconds, and on the high side it's 30 slow, but it gives you every variation in between. So I'm going to kind of stay here a little bit with the character of the track. Hold on 1 second here. Switch this off for a second. Just kind of see what my tempo is. 100 beats per minute. All right. So what I want to do quickly here, those of you that know me and tolerate me, I got into mapping out times here. So this is actually an 1/8 note here. So I'm just going to see what that works like in milliseconds. So that's 300 milliseconds. So that's easy. All right. So but at this point, I should probably know what that is. I'm just going to write that down. So 300, 600 would be a quarter note, 150. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the console 1 here and kind of work with my release time. Maybe I'll start with like 300. So I see my gain reduction up at the top here. Now the way that this kind of meters is very similar to what like it's got segments at 3, 6, you know, and kind of going through. This is just on the kick drum, and we're 100% wet here, so I'm going to go over to the snare and kind of apply similar settings. Now, somewhere in all of this, I'm sure there's a way to copy and paste these settings quickly from one to the other, but this is where I'm going to start. And this is where it's going to be key, is kind of getting this in on the overheads. And you can see here I can pretty quickly kind of set this up with hi-hat. That's already pretty well filtered, so I'm not going to touch that so much.
You again. Oh.
Not sure how this got kind of turned over a little bit to the side, but somehow this kind of got offset here. And this is something where I think I can also kind of do a little bit of low-mid shaping here on the room. Or maybe up a little bit higher, kind of remove a little bit of the boxiness. And I'm going to warm up the top a little bit here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a shelving EQ and kind of swing this down a little bit and kind of see if I can get a little bit of overall warmth there. And this kind of works right along with the other stereo pair of room mics. So I'm going to filter a little bit more of the low end out of those guys and let that other one kind of maintain a little bit more of the center imaging. Luckily, the high frequencies don't really overcut, but generally my tendency with room tracks is to kind of is more or less to warm them up on the top end. They, especially on cymbals, they have a tendency to just kind of overwork, you know, or become too messy sounding in the context of everything else.
Just find no reply. Baby, we're far from the end. So come on, baby, let me help you believe in you and me. Come on, man. Yeah, 'cause I will stay here for as long as you need. Don't get
And of course, this is like the perfect place on the compressor side to kind of kick it in a little bit more aggressively. And this is all, you know, like you could see the knob, you know, just working on this, like, able to get like a pretty quick
goodbye. You'll find no reply. Baby, we're far from the end.
So what I'm gonna do here is just kind of I'm just gonna mute it here quickly so I can kind of go back, and I'm gonna switch back to track 1 and kind of focus in and kind of balance this out a little bit. So I think what I was gonna do here was kind of go a little bit kind of dip a little bit here, and then somewhere in the notice that the when I normal my SSL consoles, the Q knobs are always straight up, but here on this they seem to follow like to the widest setting, which gives you the softest characteristic. So I'm just gonna kind of shape the sound of this bass a little bit. And I think on the low cut here we can manage to get some low end out of their sub frequency. There's not a ton. It's not overly abundant in the low frequency, but not gonna hurt. Now I can actually go to a different dynamics processor. So maybe here on the compressor, what I'll do is I'll switch over here and I'm going to cheat. I'm going to go to the TLA 100A. And so the controls that you see over here are still controlling the settings on that particular compressor. There's not a lot. You got the attack release settings and the gain reduction. And here I think I'm just going to drive the channel a little bit. So when I change the character here, I can drive it to a lower characteristic or to a higher character. So this is just driving the individual channel. So just to show you that you can use plugins from the rest of the collection, you know, we can kind of open up. I'd have to get used to that a little bit. Just turning off this without getting into some of the other things, because obviously we're going to have an awful lot to get into here. I'm just going to follow here just up with the acoustic guitars and let's see if I can. This is actually something that probably I'm going to be better off starting with to stay with kind of a light ratio. And trying to see here if I need to select my compressor. Hold on 1 second. Well, that's a preset. Not loading in a preset. There we go. trying to get like a very light. I think I was adjusting something else, which sort of scares me there for a little bit. Well, I don't really like what that's doing, so I'm going to kind of go with like a slightly faster attack and a shorter release here. Make it a little bit more present and kind of bring my threshold up a little bit. And then kind of get these guys to work together. This is a very interesting, it's a very interesting exercise in that you know, without seeing switching back and forth between my tracks, kind of matching up some. They're obviously different guitar parts, even though they say maybe they are identical and there's just a latency between the two of them. Yeah, they seem like different performances. Kind of trying to bring a little bit of warmth into these guys. A little bit of filter up there on the top to kind of just trying to think of like how it would function mostly in a mix. And just to kind of give you an idea. And I think I got my keyboards on a separate.
What would I do if I'm on your smile? So if you now tell me you're gone,
Let's start by taking a look at the
slow
vocal,
down, baby, take a moment.
because we're not going to have time to
breathe.
kind of continue going on and
I
on with
can
this here.
hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute. Come sit
And this
with
is something
me.
where I think I would
I
probably
can see you're afraid.
switch over
and
here.
I don't know what to tell you. You're scared I
let's
might
see.
fail you, and so you're leaving here before it goes wrong. Don't you know you can't keep
Gonna go with the Summit
running
EQ.
from where you belong
So
again. Oh yeah. And I'll find you again.
I'm going to do like a little bit of a
Pretend, oh yeah. And I
Oh, I guess we only
find
have
you,
like a low.
you again. No river too wide or mountain too high. I won't let goodbye be a final reply. Baby, we're far from the end. So come home, baby, let me help you believe.
Now I'm trying
in
to.
you and me.
Now I'm
Come on,
a little bit
May.
confused because of
Yeah, 'cause I
the console, remembering exactly how the EQ kind of lays out. So I think maybe let me kind of work with something here. The TubeTech program EQ. I guess I could work with the A range EQ. This would be kind of a little bit more of an interesting function. I think I was actually kind of.
slow down, baby. Take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute. Come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared I might fail you, and so you're leaving here before it goes wrong. Don't you know you can't keep running from where you belong again? Oh yeah, and I'll find you again. Pretend, oh yeah.
There's a lot of band interaction that goes on with a Trident
no
EQ.
river too wide or mountain too high. I won't let goodbye be a final reply. Baby, we're far from the end. So come on, baby, let me help you believe in you and me. Come on, baby. Yeah, 'cause I will stay here for as long as you need. Don't keep pushing away, 'cause the stories they tell you are just meant to scare you from being here with me where you belong. Tell me what would I do if robbed of your smile? So if you now tell me you're gone, remember the words in this song. When your feet can
And
carry
I'm gonna select a
I'll
compressor
carry
here.
you home. Leaving
This is actually a perfect one for the
again.
Summit,
I'll
or the
find
TubeTech
you.
rather.
I'll find you again. Oh,
Gonna go with a slower attack on this.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe a
And
lighter
I'll find you,
lighter ratio.
you
Excuse me.
again. I won't let this die with more tears to cry. I won't let goodbye be a final reply. Baby, we're far from the end.
So these numbers don't
say
represent
you're leaving,
milliseconds. They represent
no,
the
I'll
numbers
be
on the unit.
following. And I'll find you again. Oh yeah, oh yeah. And I'll find you again. If you say you're leaving, no, I'll be following. And I'll find you again. Oh yeah.
All right, so there you could see how we can integrate this. Now, the way that actually works is, and then we'll kind of wrap this up because I think this kind of gives you an idea, like, really with very little experience with this thing, I'm able to kind of move around pretty quickly. So by holding the shift, and so I have the track selected for the vocal, which was track 21. Hold the shift and the compressor, and then it calls up all the options, and then I make my adjustments here, and these settings end up mapping out. I could see that, in the software when I'm looking at it, these are mapping out, like those are the 5 knobs that map out to these 5 knobs right here. Exactly. And there were no top level, the 2 knobs that are here on the Trident EQ, so I just kind of faked my way through that. And then the high pass, low pass filter over here. and that's kind of it. And then just kind of working around. But all I did was hit the Shift compressor, Shift EQ, and then I could select from any of the not all, but most of the plugins that are available as part of the Softube collection. And so that allows me to get to some really cool vintage emulations and kind of do everything right from the work surface. So it's pretty cool. I kind of dig the workflow. It actually, takes just a touch or a few things to get used to in terms of, just getting a little bit of the logistics together or attached to your hand. But I found just like, even with a microphone in my face, kind of blocking a lot of my visual for the actual unit itself, I was able to work pretty efficiently. And maybe if there was one other thing I could do with this would be to have a separate camera so you could see my hands kind of working, although it would be impossible for you to focus in enough to see that. And also setting that up was sort of a pain in the neck and involved adding, and then this thing layers on top of it, and then I have to move that out of the way, and then it ends up being like all kinds of things shifting all over the place. So I decided against it. But anyhow, that basically is it for this. Just to kind of give you a kind of quick preview here of mixing with the Console One. Give you an idea. It's a very cool setup, and if you're looking for a workflow type of system for getting a majority of the work that you want to get done, then this is like a quick way of doing it. I find it to be a really, really cool system. All right, let's move on to our next segment.